hyaluronic acid in your body in your 40s as you did in your 20s. Hyaluronic acid attracts and retains water into your connective tissues. And so what that really is going to look like, not only our faces, if you look at somebody who's 45, we don't have the same glow as a 15-year-old. I mean, you're glowing, but you know what I'm saying. If you go back and look at a photo of yourself from when you're a teenager, or even 20, there's just a look about your face that is shifted.
Welcome to the Phase 4 podcast, inspired by Vishen Lakhiani and Ajit Nawalkar, co-founders of EverCoach, a division of Vine Valley. In this podcast, we speak to coaches and creatives about where they were, where they are, and where they are going. This is the intersection of what we focus on expands, and your story is your superpower. My guest today is Janis Isaman, and she is a trauma-sensitive movement specialist. Parts of that include yoga, Pilates, and she also has some background in mental health services with things like trauma-sensitive yoga, traumatic stress certificates, and more. And today we're going to get into all of that and more. So Janis, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, nice to be here.
Yeah, definitely grateful for your time. I always start with how did you end up in this space?
I wish that I had a simple, quick, snappy answer for that, but it was really a 20-year process. So essentially, to wrap it up in a nice little bow, I became the kind of person, practitioner, coach, whatever you want to call me, that I was looking for when I needed help. And over the years, that kind of person shifted, it changed. And I found that my clients were often kind of really on a very similar pathway to me. So the things that I needed would often show up in my clients, and then I would go get more certifications. I would try to solve problems faster, etc. And so we can kind of put a pin in it right now, but it wasn't like I woke up one day and I'm like, oh, I want to be a trauma-sensitive movement specialist. In fact, 20 years ago, we never even used the word trauma. And if I had wanted to get a certification, I have no clue how I would have even done that.
I love it. So that's good. So tell us maybe exactly what is a trauma-sensitive movement specialist?
Yes, that's a really good question because 99% of people have no idea what that is. So the words trauma sensitive actually refer to a very specific certification that allows me to use those words. So that is you reference this in the bio, but that is the trauma sensitive yoga certification. And so what they are doing that is an evidence-based program to work with people who have trauma, which is most of us in at least some way. And I'm combining that with what we used to call mind-body disciplines. So obviously the trauma-sensitive yoga comes with a yoga component, but I already came into this particular certification with Pilates, other forms of yoga, a technique called Yamuna Body Rolling, another technique called critical alignment. And those were all based on kind of what we, again, used to call mind-body. Now we've kind of rebranded that as somatic work. And so I'm able to apply that evidence-based work in its pure form, which has actual evidence and studies and, 20 years of working with the trauma center with some of the other techniques. So if somebody came in and said, I have pain in my body, I can use exercises, but I also have that mental health infusion. So it is quite a common experience for somebody to share traumatic incidents in their past trauma exposure, and then we can actually kind of modulate their experience depending on how much of the mental health work they need, how much physical health they need. Some people need really far on one end of the scale. Some people need really far on the other end of the scale. So I'm able to kind of dial up or dial down based on how a person is presenting in their body.
Right. And then the ultimate goal there is to bring them back to the middle?
Yes. The ultimate goal is really when we use the word mind body or even somatic, it means that we're aware of what's happening in our body. And I would make a pretty strong argument that most of us really don't actually know. So we're told in fitness classes, listen to your body, but are we able to actually delineate between certain kinds of pain? Are we able to delineate between what's an emotional experience and what's a physical experience? Are we able to delineate with precision where something is happening in our body. So it's kind of a common experience. If somebody will say, for example, my shoulder hurts. And, are we talking about the front, the top, the back? Where is that pain? And is that at a level of injurious pain? Is it chronic? Is it something that started yesterday? What does that pain feel like to you? Is this something that is actually biomechanical, where we have something that's pinching, or is it actually caused by your posture or how you're using your body? Is it caused by, many people fit into this category, lack of exercise, lack of strength, or is it actually caused by holding tension, stress, emotions, etc.? So kind of starting to unstrand some of that for people and giving them the awareness of what is happening in my body. How do I respond to it? How can I care for my body myself? And I want to be really clear about that piece, because I do not care for my clients' bodies. That is a personal piece of responsibility. So I'm teaching those skills to be able to be in our body in the present moment, and then to take effective action based on what is there.
All right. So I could go 100 ways with that. One thing.
Yes.
I'm going to put it out for when we'll just get to it now. Is there colors involved in this when you're going in the body looking? Is there color at all or no?
I don't use color. That
okay.
I some other practitioners do. I'm using actually what I most often do. I'll have somebody come in, and where we start is I get them to do a movement. And for my lensing, that's going to be something that we're doing every day. So things like sitting, walking, standing, stuff like that. And then I have them start to tell me what that experience feels like in their body. 99% of people have never been asked, what does it feel like when you go from a squat to standing up? Where do you feel the load transferring? Do you notice that there's tension building in the shoulder, etc.? And so I'm able to see things with my eyes. And then I'm asking and doing some prompts if I'm not kind of hearing it come out of their mouth, being very clear that at every point I might be seeing something or thinking something that doesn't match their experience. But the really biggest piece of that is getting people to start explaining their own experience. If they do have trauma, that's actually a known trauma technique. If they don't, it's just great information to have that sense of body awareness, because how can we build an exercise program? How can we start to structure movement or basic health in our life if we don't know what's going on and we only rely on doctors, trainers, chiropractors, acupuncturists to tell us? So it gives me a really good starting spot, because there are people who actually are pretty high in terms of body literacy, and there's people that have no idea.
So some people can drop in real fast. Some people it might take a couple of sessions to get there.
Some people it takes like, I have a client, I swear to you, it took like 10 years. And I'm like, okay, well, we're here now. So great. So yeah, it can take it can take a long time. It can take a short time. And there's also places in our body where we may never really have huge awareness. It might be a little bit lower on that scale. So it varies from person to person and body to body.
Okay. And so now we have to dissect it. So some of it, sitting at a computer desk for 8 hours a day, you might have a hurt back, but that doesn't necessarily mean trauma. But then there's the other side where we know the book, what's it called? The Body Keeps Score.
Yes. Yes.
So let's talk about that latter part, maybe the body keeping score.
Yeah. So when we do have trauma, and the modern definition of trauma is not the old definition of trauma. So some people still think of it as something significant happened. Quite often in the modern definition is something that actually didn't happen. So perhaps in our childhood, we didn't receive attunement, which is somebody really paying attention to you, responding to you, helping you process your emotions. It could be an event. So it could actually be a major event. It could be a minor event. What's happened is that something overwhelmed our biological system. So AKA our body. You're absolutely right. That sitting at your desk often gives people really tight hips. It might give them a sore back. That isn't necessarily trauma. How trauma will present itself quite commonly is that people don't like our bodies and you're not connected to our bodies. So I'm not diagnosing people with trauma, nor am I sitting there thinking that if somebody can't put words to their experience, because I'm aware that it's, if I asked you, what does it feel like to move from seated to standing in your hips right now? if no one's ever asked you that, you're probably not going to nail it out of the park. And I'm not going to sit there and think, oh, JP has trauma. It doesn't matter when I tell him. But what will kind of emerge, there's two things that can happen. Number one is there's certain parts of the body where we may have dead spots. So I'll give you a really concrete example. So there is often a way that sexual trauma as children will present itself, particularly in women's bodies. So we may have an inability to kind of connect with the abdomen or the core. We may have a fear of developing strength there. We may see that when we open up that area, other parts of the body get tight. We may see kind of a coping or compensation strategy where the only time that that person feels really comfortable is if their limbs, like their arms or their legs, are super strong, despite not being able to kind of get correlative strength in the abdomen. And we may see something that looks like a lot of body hatred. This one also really hard because it exists on a spectrum. Women are like commonly conditioned to hate their bodies. And so coming in and saying, you know, my fat thighs, my ugly bum and whatever, that doesn't necessarily mean trauma, but it can. So trauma does often present itself as either disconnection or dislike of the body. And so it's kind of seeing that thematically come up. What I most commonly do is just don't mention it until a client mentions it, and they often will. So as we're kind of opening up the body, people start talking, experiences come out of the body, they start sharing. And so I'm usually not in the position of saying, hey, have you ever been traumatized? Usually they will just start to say things and then say, I don't know why I'm telling you this. That's really common. And that's actually what led me to getting the trauma training in the first place, because it was so common that it was happening all the time. And I was like, I don't know, nothing about my training prepared me for this. So as we start to move the body, reintegrate the body, get that attunement to our own body, it's pretty common to actually start to get that awareness, like, hey, something is not right here.
Yeah, movement is medicine, right? And
it is.
The body image thing for women especially, it's sad because we're looking at a picture of some supermodel, which is airbrushed, so it's not even real anyway. And then society's saying, like, they have to be like that. And I think you described the places on the body, and those are like the lower chakras, the bottom of the chakras, where it's like pain, shame, guilt, blame, all these lower frequency feelings that we don't need, that most part aren't even true. Sometimes they are, but most of the time they're not. I think, like, what would you say about how much of this is mind? Like, it's stored, it's actually your mindset, and you just need to flip the script.
No one likes this answer, but I think about 20% of it. So to be fair, I am a body first practitioner, but trauma work is body first. So in all trauma work, we're going to be working with the concept. If you have read The Body Keeps the Score, you know that that's kind of the lensing, and I'm a product of my education as well. But the lensing is that this is not cognitive. And I've had that experience in my own self when I have a trauma response. It's not cognitive. There's no part of it that's me having kind of a stinky mindset where I'm like, ooh, this person is coming at me. This reminds me of something from my childhood. Your body just goes into a biological response. And that's what trauma work is. We're going to work with the body. So from my lensing, I don't work with mindset a lot. What I do know is that when our biological organism has a response, it changes our mindset. So we're not going to have, typically if we're having a trauma response, we're not going to be positive. We're not going to be thinking of the future in terms of like great optimistic ways. And so the way that we're perceiving the world when we're in those states is going to change. So they're not unrelated, but in my work, a lot of stuff is going to be the biological organism is going to be really leading the charge. And then that's where, when we can get the biological organism into neutrality, a regulated state, then our coaching and our therapies and our skill building around that, super good. Then we can go into like 80% of your life is going to be that mindset. But when we're walking around with compressed, tight, reactive, responsive biological organisms where everything is triggering us and everything is a big drama. And we have to address that first, because it's like, it's kind of like when a baby's crying. We can't be like, think positive, buddy. Like, they need food. They need their diaper changed. They need a bath, whatever they need a touch. So that's really my lensing, and that's why I give that answer.
Yeah, no, I love it. I was surprised for sure, but definitely love it. I wonder about pain. We're talking about pain in the body, and like there's a difference between pain and suffering. And so
Yes.
does that come up? What does that look like?
That's a really good question. Again, I would put that on a spectrum. So they are not opposite, because we can be in pain. My back could hurt and I may not be suffering. But there are many people that I see commonly where we don't have the tools, because we don't really put a societal focus on this. We focus on money. We focus on power. We focus on access. We don't really focus on like, how is your biology doing today? Have you had enough sleep? Have you eaten well? Have you, nurtured your relationships? Is your body in pain? So a lot of people really come to me and they start talking about their body as an aging collapse, basically. I was going to say shitstorm. and there's the idea that we just fall apart and like there's nothing we can do, and oh well, aging blows and we're all just going to go down with the sinking ship. And I mean, I'm 20 years older than when I started this, and my body feels actually better, not worse. So, knock on some wood over here that remains the case, but I'm doing my own work, and that is very emotional. That is very, I'm doing the yoga and I'm moving my body every day, without any exceptions to that. So I'm taking care of that. So to me, suffering is when we don't have the tools, knowledge, capacities, etc., to actually manage our own pain. We no longer have agency. We no longer have power. We no longer know how to take effective action. So when we were little kids, if we fell and hurt ourselves, perhaps our mother, perhaps somebody else in our life could help bandage that up. I have a little bit of a bias because I often see people who come in some sort of crisis, but many adults actually do not know how to do that for themselves. So how do it's everything from self-soothing to comforting to literally like, how do we actually formulate an exercise and movement plan for ourselves when we're 40 and 50 and 60 and 70? If you don't have that toolkit, I do think it moves quickly into suffering, because part of not suffering is actually being able to take agency and to manage pain. We're all going to have pain. Pain is just part of life. We have grief in our life, and we have anger, and we have sadness, and we have other upsets. And we also, my back is hurt in my life. My hips have hurt in my life. My knees have hurt in my life. Like, so it's not that I'm a person who's like, oh, nothing's ever hurt. What does that mean? It means that when these things arise, I can take some sort of action to make things better, if not remove them.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, for me, suffering is just like, it's prolonged. Like the pain happens, you break your arm or you bang your elbow, it hurts. If you're like 2 weeks later still like, it's suffering. You ever see like when a woman has a baby, they're in pain, lots of pain. It's quite obvious.
Yes.
5 seconds later, it turns to joy and there's no suffering there, right? So that's how I kind of look at it. Just suffering is the prolonged, like suffering's, actually suffering for me it's the mind. Like pain, I'm hurt, my body maybe physically, but then to suffer is when you have it in the mind almost.
I think what can happen is, you're absolutely right. And I would extend it by saying that suffering can actually happen like that. If we have repetitive pain triggers, let's say, it doesn't have to be something that lasts for 2 weeks. It could actually be, oh crap, this has happened again. I threw my back out. I threw my neck out. Oh no. And then you're absolutely right. Your mind starts to go off onto this pathway because you don't have any tools or how to recalibrate your biology.
So that's great. So earlier you said about like for someone older, like 40, 50 compared to 20, 30, that the way you approach it would look different. So could you tell us what it would look like? Obviously, it's dependent on the person, their trauma, but
It is.
there's probably some underlying things that you teach everybody. So could you share?
Yeah. One of the things that actually happens to us as human beings is that our tissues change as we get older. So most of us are kind of aware that it becomes harder to lose weight, lose body fat. It becomes harder to gain muscle. That is real. That's not a figment of, the media or whatever. The other thing that actually happens to our body is the amount of hydration and our tissue changes. So I can't remember the exact specifics, nor does it matter, but let's estimate you have approximately half of a substance called hyaluronic acid in your body in your 40s as you did in your 20s. Hyaluronic acid attracts and retains water into your connective tissues. And so what that really is going to look like, not only our faces, if you look at somebody who's 45, we don't have the same glow as a 15-year-old. I mean, you're glowing, but you know what I'm saying. If you go back and look at a photo of yourself from when you're a teenager, or even 20, there's just a look about your face that is shifted. That's happening inside your body too. So it's really crappy, but we kind of dry out, quite literally. So within that, a lot of the exercises that are prescribed culturally, if you went to the bookstore right now, you're going to find dozens and dozens of workout and fitness books. Most of those are going to tell you to push and to exert yourself in a strenuous manner. And they're going to give you, if you pick up a book about yoga, it's going to be all these pretzel twists and really complicated things. And then people find those very inspiring. There is a reason to follow most of that advice in some nominal way. That said, many of us sit at desks. We are aging. We are drying up. We actually don't even have any use for a lot of those exercises. Our muscle tone is getting harder to acquire, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so all of this to say is that I strongly, strongly, strongly believe that the way that we think about working out and fitness has to shift as we age. We are not 20. We shouldn't be working out like we're 20. This is a very hard message to get out there. So to me, it is the same. People understand this quite clearly. If I was to buy a car from 1972, I would know that I have to maintain that car. I can't just park it in the garage and leave it there and then hope that in 4 years it's going to be good to go. Versus the car that I actually purchased in 2019. That's probably going to be fine. Maybe I need an oil change or whatever, but it's not going to fall apart in 4 years. Whereas that car from 1972 actually might. So the car from 1972 needs different maintenance, and our bodies are no different. So people really understand that when we use that vehicle analogy. Man, they fight when it comes to our bodies. So I think that we need what this is not my terminology. It comes from the world of Yamuna Body Rolling. The founder of that technique calls it body sustainability. And that's something that I do myself. So that means we're not working on our cardio. We are not working on our strength. We are not working on our flexibility. What we are working on is actually having function in our body. So that technique is going to use balls. There are also techniques out in the world that use rollers. There's Yin Yogas. There's techniques where we're really working on getting some hydration and space back into the tissues. Because as we age, we have forces of gravity pushing our head down, making everything really tight and squishy. Then we have kind of those forces that are drying us out. So we have to get hydration back into our body. We have to get capacity to move back into our body. So for me, that is half of my workout right now. Half of it. Wow. Doing a 2-minute stretch at the gym isn't it? So, and why I do that is because I have a rib that wants to pop out. I have glutes that want to be lazy, and I'll end up with back pain. And so I spend half of my workout time making sure that my body feels neutral, not in pain, everything can move. And then from there, I build my workout on top. That's a hard message for people who maybe have a desk job, want to lose weight, want to get some result, and you go and you hit your 21-day program, you hit your 30-day program, and then all of a sudden everything hurts, you get injured, et cetera, et cetera. So I can't emphasize that enough, and I do it myself and my body feels great, but that's why it feels great. So kind of setting aside that idea of counting calories or building all of this stuff. To me, the base of the pyramid is, can you move with ease and without pain? If the answer is no, stop there. If the answer is yes, then, and it might be different for some other people. Maybe it's 20% of your program. Maybe it's 80% of your program. Maybe it's 100% of your program. But kind of building that into, can you do this every day? And what percentage of it do you need to do in a day or a week or a month?
Yeah. My advice there is like, go low, go slow. That's my saying. I always use
Absolutely.
it. Just add a little bit, right? So
Yes.
for what you're saying back there, if someone doesn't understand, for running, I'm a runner, and this is exact same in running. 80% of your training to run fast should actually be a walk or a really slow jog where you can breathe.
Yeah.
And then only 20% is like you're sprinting and doing that kind of
Absolutely.
work.
Yeah.
And it's the hardest thing to get across because you have to have that base of the pyramid in order to keep going. But I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also many people really compare ourselves to some version of ourselves that I can do this too, but it's like when you ask people, what are your goals or what do you envision for yourself? It's like we pinpoint a moment. For some people, it's 2 years ago, but many people, it's like 20 years ago. So now we're talking about something they were when they were 25 for 5.5 minutes, right? It's like, oh, I ran this incredible thing and like, it was so great. And they want to get to that, forgetting that in the 20 years since then, they haven't been there, but also that they're not 20 anymore. And so I think one of the parts of aging that we really have to own and get with comes back to our trauma and mind body work, which is that we have to process grief. We are not that person anymore. We are not even the same person we were yesterday. So how do we move forward? And that pyramid has to look different. And you're absolutely right. You have to go low, go slow. And you're probably, none of us would think that we're going out to run a marathon tomorrow without being trained, but we try to do that in other parts of life.
I think when you're talking about the all of the exercise part of it, and so then for women in like perimenopause, menopause, you have to add more protein, but even like 1 pound weights, right? You're just trying to get the muscle to work itself to get some energy going.
Yeah, I think women at every age tend to focus on everything but our arms. And so I make 100% of my female clients do push-ups. I make 100% of my female clients get up off the floor using just our arms, etc. Because, you know, it's the old commercial in Canada. I've fallen and I can't get up. That wouldn't happen to us anymore because most of us have an iPhone. But the reality is that when we lose that strength, we can't carry groceries. We can't move around our desks, etc. And because of that socialization towards women's bodies, the arms are typically the last part that women think about. It tends to be an area where we don't easily gain strength. And so it's not about, it could be if you wanted it to be, it's not that you have to lift 50-pound barbells. It's, as you said, what is the function in your life? You have to be able to carry groceries. I actually think it's a lot more than 1 pound, but that's where you need to start if that's all you have.
Yeah, right, for sure. Just something like, because I think people hear weights and they just think like these dudes in the gym, right? Yeah. My favorite person in the gym is like the 80-year-old grandma who's like, just get, and I'm like, you're the one who inspires me, not this dude.
It's true. It's true. And weight is something that we should be able to handle. That's part of what the Pilates piece of my programming is. It's weight bearing. It's done with ropes and springs as opposed to free weights, but same, where we're moving load through the body. And, you know, the examples that I definitely give, you want to be able to lift groceries. You want to be able to pick up some books. These are not necessarily hard, heavy weights, but they're a function that most of us want when we're 70 and 80 and 90.
Right. You want to get to the grandkids and be able to pick them up and throw them around.
Yeah.
So you said trauma and pain, right? We're trying to dissect that. So someone might just be like, oh man, I don't know which one is me, but I keep hearing this trauma word keeps coming everywhere. So what advice do you have someone who's right at the beginning who might not be sure, hey, I got this pain here, even a tumor that is totally physical pain, that could actually be from trauma. So
it could be.
What would you tell somebody to delineate?
Yeah. So I think that, again, in our culture, we love we love quizzes, we love certainty, we love, how do you do this in like 20 seconds or less? And the answer is you don't. What you do is you start to practice. You practice the technique that I just shared earlier, which sounds very simple, but it's really complicated to get it into your life and to do it all the time. What do you feel in the body? So I would start in one of two places because there's two equal but wonderful entry points. So the next time you feel a powerful emotional response, what happens in my body is my brain starts to go. I start to process it. I start to intellectualize it. So then I had to strip that back and say, am I having a strong emotional response? Yes. Okay. What do I feel in my body and where do I feel it? This is going to be like a massive simplification, but for the most part, if we feel a lot of sensation kind of in the front of our trunk. So I feel a pit in my stomach. I feel a grip in my stomach. I feel a lot of burning in my chest. There's a pretty high chance that that's an emotional response. Now, of course, there are physical things that create similar sensations. But if I notice in myself that that's paired with ruminating, intellectualizing, dissociating, that's not a tumor. That's an emotional response and I'm triggered. But going through the practice of going through the exercise of practicing that over and over and over again is how I know that. It's not because I did it once. It's not because I watched a TikTok on it. It's because I had to be like, let's stop. What's happening right now? The other access door is doing it through pure physicality. So I described that a bit earlier. When you stand up, what do you notice in your hips? What sensations do you feel? And so what you'll notice is that both of these have the same thread. What do you notice? What do you feel? Where do you feel it? And I share that. It sounds really easy. It sounds so easy that most people don't do it. But that's how we get to that place. And that's not to say that it's going to be this clear-cut thing, because it's not, and we've also all had that moment where we think something's wrong and it is or it isn't. We're not always going to get it right. So just knowing that is helpful as well, that it doesn't have to be like, okay, today I'm going to set out to delineate between physical pain and emotional pain and I'm going to nail it. I can tell you that when my rib goes out, I can't tell the difference. So that is a very strong sensation for anybody who's ever dislocated a rib. Not the best. I can't tell to this day what that is. So even with all the work I do, but I certainly can tell if I have like an emotional trigger, a trauma trigger, that sensation in my stomach paired with that, the ruminating and the thought process that for me happens. I know that that is not my stomach needing a doctor. That's an emotional response. So it's practice, 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 practice.
That's what I said. Practice. You can practice the awareness to realize that. So It's again, go slow, go slow over time.
Yeah.
As we begin to wind down, if this episode resonates, please like, subscribe, share, and reach out to Janis. She's got a bunch of different modalities that can all come together to help you release pain, trauma, get over some healing. And I kind of ask everyone this. This is the Phase 4 podcast, and Phase 4 in the 6th phase is all about creating your future 3 years. Phase 4 in the 6th phase meditation by Vishen Lakhiani is all about creating your future 3 years from today. So where is Janis 3 years from today?
Whoa, that's such a good question. I am currently in the process of, I used to actually move every 5 years. And so you pick up everything that you own and it either has to go into a box or get out. I'm not moving, but I am doing that process in my life right now. So literally rooms are getting emptied. I'm going through everything. And so what I hope, what has always come out of that for me is that I can be the person that I am right now today. I'm not living in the past. I'm not living in a future that I hope can happen. And so 3 years from now, I hope that process is done because it takes a long time. And then I'm just continuing to explore new avenues as I mature into, we're always shifting, we're always growing. So there's a part of me right now that's in a bit of a transition. And so I want to purge what's old and welcome in new things into that space.
That's awesome. I just gave a speech before I came on here, and it was about if you have a beautiful Ferrari, aka you, in order to put it in the garage, you have to take some stuff out of the garage that's not serving you anymore.
You do. And man, I resisted that. Like I am by nature just like a hoarder and a clinger and a keeper. And it's not an easy process for me. I'm not someone who's like, wow, this feels so great. It's a slog for me. So, but it really is true. I can't be the tomorrow me without actually releasing some of the crap in the garage. It's true.
Does breath work come into this at all for you or your clients?
I don't tend to use it. I have training to use it. It is, for me, not something that's ever really deeply spoken to me. And I would be doing a huge disservice to the other breathwork practitioners and trained folks to do that technique, because it's something that every time I do it, I'm like, I want to like this. I want to do this. And I'm not there yet. So,
how about actually just breathing, right? So like, look, I'm sitting down here in the chair all day. I'm sore in my back. It's because I'm not sitting up straight and breathing. So do you share that kind of thing?
Oh, yes. We have to. So actually on a very physical level, I see a lot of folks who actually literally no longer are capable mechanically of taking air into their lungs. So we have to open up their ribs. We have to get that breath. I mean, even 20 years ago, actually, Pilates was very much about breath, and it was a 360-degree breath into the back of the rib cage. If you actually try to get breath into the back of your rib cage, I can see you doing it right now. It's stickier back there, right? That's an area for a lot of us that we hold a lot of tension. We hold a lot of emotional stuff. We have gravity. We're typically kind of slumped forward. So it becomes really tricky to get air back there. That's where something like a yin or a Yamuna Body Rolling or critical alignment, we can literally open space in the ribs. We can actually give that to someone. So I 100% teach that component of it, but I'm not doing it from like an energetic, spiritual lensing. It's like, let's get the mechanics of your body set up so that your diaphragm can work and that your ribs can actually get some air into there, because we all know this, but our nervous systems downregulate and upregulate with breath. So think about running. That's an upregulated activity where we need to breathe faster. We might take deeper breaths. When we're going to bed, we're not going to breathe the same way, because we want to, as we come into that state of relaxation, breath typically slows, it gets deeper. So that's the cool thing about our bodies. We can breathe in all kinds of different ways. But if you can't even get air into your lungs, we don't have those choices and options.
Love it. I can see it, right? So when I'm running, sometimes you get a 167, 170. Sometimes when I'm sleeping, my watch will have an alert, a yellow like alarm, like, go seek medical attention. Your heart rate's 38 beats per minute. And I'm like, oh,
wow.
But it's not because of anything's wrong. It's just because of like running, right? It means you have a healthy heart, which Apple obviously is basing it off. Everyone else must not.
Yeah, I think there's man, we're living in like the coolest times ever, because we do have technology to show us these things. Not a question you asked, but I think there's such value in using some of that tech for some of those reasons. Years ago, I used to run as well, and I used a heart rate monitor back and put it around the rib cage, and looking so cool with the huge giant watch that was like the size of your hand on your wrist. But what I learned from that, actually, that was, again, this is not a new thing, but there's a guy named John Duyard who is an Ayurvedic practitioner, and he wrote a book that actually at that time totally changed my life, where he did teach breath modulation as you're running. So where you breathe only in and out through the nose, and learning to really control your heart rate and your breath while you're working out. It was like, it doubled my efficiency as a cyclist and a runner. Like, it's crazy how much you can work with your heart rate and your breath to actually really build literally the muscles of your heart and your lungs. I never tried wearing my heart rate monitor in bed because it's not comfortable back in the day. But what's super cool is we have all this tech to give us all these numbers. where I do find people fail with it is they put the watches or the monitors on and then totally disconnect from the experiences in their body.
They're only whatever the watch says. Yeah. I know. I see some guys running and it's like every 2 seconds, like, okay, it's only been 3 more seconds, but yeah, it can become addictive. It's good as a tool, like you say, but it can't be the only thing, right? Sometimes I don't look at it at all.
Yeah, and I think you answered one of your questions from earlier. Like, how do you know when you're alarming and your heart rate is 32 and you're laying in bed? I have incredibly low blood pressure to the point where, like, when I get it checked, they're like, it's the same thing. Alarms go off, but I know that it's not actually concerning because I'm in touch with my body, and same thing with you. So that's where kind of that spectrum is, that technology can only tell us what it's reading out. What are we actually interpreting? What are we feeling? Because for some people, they should get medical attention for those things.
Yeah, for sure. You said something that made me think Ayurveda. So that's surprising after listening to the rest of our conversation, but does that come into your practice now, or is that more a personal thing?
It doesn't. That for me was a bit of a doorway into some of this world. And that was, again, probably 15 years ago. It's remarkable how much has changed. So when I started, we did call some of, yoga and Pilates were called mind body, but I mean, to be honest, you could do that whole workout, all the choreography without really connecting to your body at all. And we had, mental health and physical health were totally different. And the only place that we saw any kind of intersection of some of those concepts was things like Ayurveda. I just butchered how you say that. Or naturopathy, or, some of your more kind of really, really, really holistic practices that today I think have been mainstreamed. But that's where I actually found some of the gems that really started to shift my life, because back when I was running and cycling, my body was also inflamed and I couldn't figure out how to stop that. And those were kind of the little pockets where I could find answers, like, oh, food actually makes a difference to training. And I say that now and it's like ridiculous, but like, it was in the deep dark corner of the bookstore where you had to actually go to like a health food store to find it. It wasn't like front and centered, and it certainly, we didn't really have social media. So there was a couple books that just like stand out in my brain as like, whoa. Another one was our fellow comedian Brendan Brazier. He wrote a book called Thrive. I think that was actually his second book, but he talked about nutrition and training for endurance athletes, and he actually went vegan. The supplement Vega is directly from there, and that was the first vegan nutrition line. And that was, he was the first person that I ever heard talk about, I'm doing all of this training and nutrition matters. And now I'm like, yeah, that's like not even, I could read that and it wouldn't have any impact on me, because like we've heard it, right? Same thing with John Douillard. A lot of his messages have subsequently been kind of mainstreamed, but back in the day it was like, I had to go into a store with like crystals and incense to find it, right? And these were like mind-blowing things to me. I was like, whoa, that's really, really monumental. And that was, I think that's actually where that curiosity between it's a whole system. It's not just kind of one piece where we apply this rigid scientific principle and, I'm going to throw a little bomb in here at the end, but like calories in, calories out. That assumes that we're bomb calorimeters without hormones, without emotions, without kind of other things.
Do you want to talk about that bomb calorimeter thing for a minute, if you know about it?
Yeah. So basically,
I read out about that. It was mind blowing.
People will argue with me on social media all day in and all day out. And so that the idea behind calories is that we can actually take a food and figure out how many calories. That's a fact. That is actually a fact. But there are so many things that actually impact how our body is processing those calories. So we are not bomb calorimeters, which is the device that we use to figure out how many calories is in a food. So again,
literally blowing it up, right? We take the food, we put it in this thing, and we literally blow it up, and that's how we do. All right, because I don't think, yeah, I just learned about this, and it's such a fascinating thing. So that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. And so it's not that information is false. That information is true, but there is some just like crazy human components. So whether we're eating, if we eat with other people, the way that we process food changes. Bomb calorimeters are not like that. Right. We can put that right beside a person, or we can take it all by itself in a lab, and it's going to give us the same result. Whether food is heated or not heated is going to change it. I have seen this recently. It's just not true. That women going through menopause or perimenopause, the reason that women typically gain weight is supposedly because we exercise less and we have access to more wealth and we eat richer food. Well, go survey a bunch of women actually going through menopause and perimenopause. There's a hormonal thing happening that changes how we process food. Calories can remain exactly the same, and where we store body fat might shift. We know that from looking at teenagers, right? So a 9-year-old and a 14-year-old female can actually eat the same number of calories, and that body composition is going to shift. There's just a whole list of factors. Stress, we all actually know that, and then people kind of boil it down to cortisol, but stress tremendously changes how you process food. So again, we know that, but we want to fight against it and just turn it into a math equation. But humans in Ireland survived on potatoes. That should, I know I'm part Irish too. That should actually not exist. So we should actually have died. Some people clearly did, but the math didn't math, right? So what happened in our body? Again, it wasn't because we were suddenly bomb calorimeters. It's because the human body gets really, really efficient at storing when we have lack. So I know that I'm not the only one because I looked up statistics, but how many people listening gained weight during the pandemic lockdown?
Yeah, overeat.
Yeah. Right. And there are people who actually can link it to, I did this and that's why it happened. There are also people who are like, I changed nothing and I still gained 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds. And I did see actually, I looked up information about that and I saw kind of a range of averages. So people gained on average between 20 and 40 pounds, like quite a significant amount. When I look up what has happened subsequently, many people are still carrying at least some of that weight. Is that because there's still Uber Eats around? Maybe. Is it because our bodies have now actually shape-shifted our entire hormonal system? Fat's a hormone. Fat is a hormone. It's not just like a kind of six-pack that we attach on the outside of our body. So that means every organ in the body adapts around that fat. And once we've actually had that fat for about 2 years on our body, it's really challenging to kind of move it on out because our hormonal system is like, hey, we don't want you to lose that. So again, there is fact to calories. There is fact to the fact that eating it gives us calories, exercising gets rid of calories. But when we look at the World Health Organization saying that, I forgot if it's 43 or 48% of the world's population is obese, and that it's actually a crisis, it's not because of calories. Because if it was that simple, we could all just take care of the problem. And you look at our friend Ozempic as leading kind of how some of science looks at fat and how it looks at how we're gaining and retaining adipose tissue. And it's for sure there is some habit component of it. If I didn't believe that there's any, I probably wouldn't do the work that I do. Not that my work is centered around fat, but it is centered around the experience of our body. I'm a huge believer in kind of health habits, but I think that there's a lot when it comes to calories and some of the ways that we've conditioned people that it's all about willpower and it's all about discipline and it's all about getting out there and burning as many calories as you can. That doesn't add up to half the world's population, or we've been given this calorie message for decades. It should be working by now if that was true.
Right. Yeah, there's a book called Why Calories Don't Count. That's the name of the book. And he talks exactly like that about some of the things. Have you seen this guy running across Canada?
I have seen the guy running across Canada. That's amazing.
So I saw one video. He went into like A&W, some kind of burger store, and he ordered a bunch of stuff for breakfast. And the guy's like, you know how many calories that is? He's like, I don't know, 6,000 maybe? He's like, no, 12,000. The guy ate 12,000 calories for one meal.
Now, if I was running across Canada, I would need at least 12,000 calories in one meal. That's impressive.
75 kilometers a day for 99 days. And I'm like,
yeah,
wow.
That's
intense.
It's super intense. Yeah. This is not to do with, well, it is to do with his run. I was astonished at the weather conditions in the Maritimes when he was trying to run through there.
Yeah, it's so cool. I think the whole idea, he came through kind of our area like last week, and it was like, oh man, I just missed it. But what an amazing thing to do, right?
It's an amazing thing to do. It's got a Terry Fox vibe to it, and I'm into that.
That's what he said. It was all Terry Fox, and he's like greatest Canadian of all time. And people always ask me, what do I do when it gets going hard and when it's tough? And he's like, I just think about Terry Fox, and he had to go
that's
through
amazing. Yeah, this is a little trivia fact, but we had Terry Fox's Econoline van, which was refurbished by Ford here in Calgary for, I don't know, a couple of months at Heritage Park. And so I went to see it, and it's a beaut.
Yeah, it's a crazy story, the whole thing. Like, I don't know.
Very, very inspirational. And I'm really glad that we as a country have a Terry Fox Day and that we recognize that, because that's just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, my kids come home singing this song all the time, and love it. I wasn't going to ask, I wonder about Qigong. Do you do a Qigong? Is that no?
I don't. I would be generally in favor of that, because where we're at with that would be, again, something I would consider like a body sustainability practice. We're doing breath, we're doing awareness, we're doing slow and gentle, we're doing, that's going to be, I see things now come and they go, and the trends appear and they disappear. So we've rebranded kind of all of those kinds of movements as mobility work, but that's what I would put it in, where we're going to work our limbs in ranges of motion. So you're moving your arms out, you're pulling them in, you're taking them to the side, you're taking them overhead. That's to be great mobility through the arms, which we need that. We tend to lose ranges where we never move in them. So things I talk to my clients about is, if you've ever heard of somebody who quote unquote threw out their back reaching for a door handle or kinked their neck when they're asleep, it's partly because that muscle system it's dry, it's underused, etc. If we're sitting at our desk and then hitting the gym and just doing things in that forward motion, we're going to be prone to injuries. So something like a Qigong, just from a really practical level, we're going to get kind of more spiraling movement. We're going to get that slower movement, more prolonged holding. So, your arms might be out for 20 minutes. And then you're really doing it with mindfulness, which I think if there's one kind of theme to everything that I talk about, that's it. You can use whatever word you want, but it's really being aware of your experience in the present moment. And we can't do something like Qigong by tuning out, disconnecting, being somewhere else, listening to the music, etc. So it's going to kind of constantly bring us back to the body. So although I'm not currently practicing it, like, that is something I would consider, because it kind of checks all the boxes of what I would put into that sort of sustainability practice. The other thing that actually tends to be great about that, I remember when I lived in Toronto, I would walk past people doing it together in a park. So we're going to get kind of that community piece of it. Some people call that accountability.
Broadview?
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that my Broadview? Wow, I see them at that park all the time.
Yeah. 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 And that's great. So humans need other humans. We need to feel connected. We need to attune. Again, if you read The Body Keeps the Score, you're going to see that actually it quite commonly comes up in music. So you're going to get people sitting in a drum circle. You're going to get people singing together, moving together like that. Super good. It's great. It's great for all kinds of aspects. So yes, to the people at Broadview, you're doing well.
Cool. I wasn't sure because the way you were talking, but then I'm like, it kind of fits. So let's see. Yeah. But good. Very good. Yeah. Yeah. So before I ask my final question, I always like to let the guests take it wherever they want. So if you have something to sell it. If you have a book or if you want a message of hope, inspiration, some tips, whatever you want.
The only thing I have to sell is that I really think that everybody can feel good in their body. And that's a super empowering message that, I've seen people, some of my clients have stage 4 cancer. Some people come in to see me and haven't been able to stand up off the floor. And we can always make progress. We can always improve how we feel in the body. We can always be present in our body. We can always kind of change our lives. There's actually research that even shows we can start exercising anywhere between 20 and age about 60, and the net result will be the same. Like, that's incredible. So the body has incredible capacities to feel great at any age, any stage, any condition. And so my mission, if I had one, is like, I want everybody to have the experience in their body that I have, which is just, I have energy. I don't have pain. I can use my body in ways that if I want to do a thing, I can do a thing. And I wish that everybody could have that. So if you don't have that, then I guess I do have something to sell you. And that is, I have services that I would be happy to share with you. And part of what I do with those services is I create home-based programs for everybody. So it's replicable. I don't think that anybody should have to rely on another person or practitioner for their own health. So I can teach you things that I learned and things that I know, and then you get to go home and do them by yourself. But that's all I have to sell, is like a message that no matter where you're at, you can make changes, you can shift things, and it'll always be for the better.
Love that message. I saw a girl in Toronto during the pandemic, 75 years old. She went and got her master's degree. Last week in London, a 76-year-old broke her own record, 3:33 in a marathon. Right? What? And so at 76 years old.
Oh, wow.
Like, I'm sprinting and it took me almost 4 hours. Like, free.
I only ran one. And it was, I mean, to be fair, I had a baby fairly recently before that, but I was like, I was at 4:34. I'm not, that lady's inspiring. That's amazing.
Yeah. So like you said, anytime, it doesn't matter when, you can always start. Neuroplasticity, we know all these things. And then I guess my final question is, how can people reach you?
My business is in Calgary. So if you're in Calgary, you can come see me in person. If you're not, I do digital communications and work. My business name is My Body Couture, which is 3 words. First word is my, M-Y. Second word is body, B-O-D-Y. Third word is couture, C-O-U-T-U-R-E. So I'm at the .com, and any social media site where I'm active, I'm going to be at the /My Body Couture.
Perfect. We'll put all those links in the show notes. And Janis, thank you so much for your time today. I'm so grateful.
This is really a lot of fun for me. Thanks a lot.